I haven't been back to my hometown in almost 25 years. To be precise, 25 years, 5 months, and 12 days. At 26, I walked away from a damaged man. That day marked the beginning of my 3-year marriage to my wife, when I learned she was expecting our first child, hers and her boss's, not mine. Though she didn't really try to hide it, I knew the moment she informed me she was pregnant that it wasn't mine. We had nothing and were young. I took a temporary job on a river barge that traveled the entire length of the Mississippi since the economy was bad for a young man. It was a lot of money, but I had to take a 6 to 8 week leave of absence. It was 9 in the end. We both agreed that it was worthwhile to break up, since I could have made more money in those 2 months at my old work than I could have in 4. We were in love and young. We could manage it. Before my wife began making love to her boss, David Hollister, she managed to hold out for around 2 weeks. She was one of 3 administrative assistants working for him at his insurance company. She was actually the 3rd person he used. He was well connected in our little community as well, so even when she looked directly at him, he merely smiled. "Debbie, what are you going to do? Will you attempt to destroy me? Are you going to sue me? I'm single. You don't have 2 cents to hire a lawyer, and the local judge is my brother-in-law." The following day, he let her go despite giving her a $1,000 severance payout. She was working the morning shift as a server at a nearby diner when I got back to town 2 weeks later. She told me this story with such regret in it. It was very moving. She spent 15 minutes apologizing to herself, and then demanded that we sue the guy with my newly acquired $12,500 in wealth. "It didn't mean a thing, Tom. We can repair this." I was simply, lonely. I stood silently and stoically as she continued talking incoherently. It was implied by her admission that it meant nothing that she had made love to him roughly 20-odd times while I was away. When she hesitated, I suppose she was actually shocked, since I laughed angrily in her face. I packed up my belongings and headed out for good after washing a few loads of laundry in silence for the next hour. In the late 90s, cell phones were considered a luxury, so she really had no way of finding me. She was never seen or heard from again. Yes, I felt hurt, embarrassed, and broken. I was also enraged. As a young man with limited experience, I had no idea how or what to do with it, but I would have delighted to figure out a way to burn the bastard and the fool alike. My parents have passed away. I was kept in gorgeous Hannibal, Missouri, with no connections because I had a sister in Chicago. I took a second barge ride, went west, and purchased a used Ford F-150 pickup vehicle. I made my way up over the course of the following 20 years. I consequently obtained a degree in finance and spent 3 years working as an accountant for a small business in Denver. I completed my degree in just over 2 years since I had plenty of time to study and attend classes because I was single, or at least living alone. I was unaware that Debbie would file for divorce. Although I never really found out, I believe she got divorced. Having a little bucks in my pocket and a few letters in front of my name, I made my way further west and settled in Bend, Oregon. Even though I didn't know anyone there, my research suggested that it would be a fantastic spot to unwind. For me, winter skiing and mountain biking were ideal, and summer golf. Furthermore, I firmly believed that there was no significant movement from Hannibal to Bend in order for me to truly start anew in life. 10 years after I started off as a modest investment broker with a store, I had 3 junior partners and a few administrative support staff members. My world was going great, and I had almost $200,000 a year. I went on dates as frequently as I wanted to and met wonderful pals. I never considered getting married since I was still haunted by the memory of Debbie's treachery. When coworkers questioned me why I wasn't interested in my wife and kids, I never gave them the whole story. I simply answered, "Not for me," and shrugged my shoulders. I have truly thought about Deb on occasion over the years. There was no avoiding thought. After 2 years of dating, we were married for 3 years. I believed I was with the lady I would be with for the rest of my life for the majority of those 5 years. When I learned that she had slept with her employer and was expecting his illegitimate child, I was taken aback. I did not want to become insensitive to these hurtful recollections. As a result, I try to keep my eyes on the bright side of things and make every effort to treat others well. Thus, even though I'm doing great and putting the past behind me, I'm currently traveling by Delta from Portland to St. Louis and then making a leap to Hannibal. Why? It turns out that I was left a tiny bequest from a long-lost uncle on my mother's side. His attorney managed to find me and bend me some way. We spoke on the phone about this, and while I could have just left him handle everything from a distance, I thought there was no reason not to make one final trip back to the old manor. So I embarked on a trip down the memory trail at the age of 51, a totally different person. Even though I'm a bit frugal, I chose to go first class because I was about to inherit roughly $40,000. After settling in, I noticed that I was seated next to a lovely young lady who appeared to be in her mid-20s. She went by Tabitha, and she was in Bend visiting friends. Her mother had given her the trip as a 25th birthday present. We were conversing like long-time friends by the time we had crossed Nebraska. When Tabitha was born, her mother was unmarried. However, when her daughter was approximately 2 years old, she was married to a high school teacher in the area. Regretfully, he was not only sacked but also sentenced to prison after molesting a few minor schoolgirls. Her mother remarried when Tabitha was 12 years old, this time to a local businessman. She attended a Missouri school after graduating from high school in a lovely home they owned. The second marriage failed when her mother caught her husband with his secretary 6 years prior. Her mother chose to remain single at that same moment. She continued to explain that she had an accounting degree and worked in St. Louis as we sipped wine and spoke. She spent at least one weekend a month with her mother. She obviously adored her mother, even though she also believed that she was a little insane. It's clear that her mother knew very little about men, and Tabitha didn't learn how to be in a committed and loving relationship from her mother's experiences. I felt as though there was something fascinating in her eyes during our conversation, but I was unable to identify it and thus missed it. She inquired about my past, so I told her everything aside from my early marriage and breakup when she asked. I simply didn't want to discuss it with anyone, especially not with a young lady I had just met on the plane who was approximately half my age. She didn't appear overly interested and seemed happy with what I was sharing. As the last hour of the journey approached and we neared Kansas City, I also became aware that young Tabitha was having some issues with her father. She cuddled up to me when we were talking. Even though we had just had a few glasses of wine, more than was proper, and she was obviously flirting. It seemed as though she was asking if I would be interested in her when she spoke about the lack of an engagement ring. The young woman who was flirting with me was, to be honest, someone I loved. I mean, I'm fit and quite social, but come on. What 25-year-old would be into a guy who's old enough to be her father? Now that she was putting her palm openly on my, Tabitha said she still had a few days to go before going back to work. She asked if I wanted to go to Hannibal with her. She could pay her mother a surprise visit and spend some time showing me the changes that have occurred in her former hometown. I'm not a fool, even though I may be a freak, is one of my favorite proverbs. I got Tabitha a ticket from St. Louis to Hannibal when we landed. On the plane, I managed to get her a seat beside me. This little plane held only 40 minutes of travel time, yet it had no first-class seats. The lights in the cabin were turned down as soon as the aircraft took flight. It was dark by the time we took out. It was late evening. Tabitha stretched out to kiss me at that very moment. It was a scorching kiss, but it didn't smolder. With a smile, Tabitha gently purred in my ear. God, I'm so sorry. Dad's got a major issue. He requires assistance. I took her hand and whispered, if you continue to behave badly, I will have to punish you when we arrive. Young lady, she whispered back. Of course, I hope so. And I felt the heat radiating from her. We landed in 20 minutes, and though it was too late to call her mom, neither of us was in the mood to leave. Tabitha spent the night at my place, and we decided that she would speak with her mom the following day. While I was with the lawyer, we both decided that I was not going to meet her mother. Although Tabitha understood it was best to exercise restraint, she did not believe her mother would be entirely incensed when she discovered that her daughter had chosen to have an affair with a guy who was much older than her. We entered, and in about 1 minute, I had Tabitha wedged between the wall and my hard grip on her wrists over her head. She had what I guessed to be 34s, and they were flawless. She refused to continue kissing and insisted that I give her time to shower. I had to admit, after over 7 hours of driving, that it was a wise decision. She gave me a menacing smile and told me to wait while she gets ready to make her father pleased when I tried to give her a back rub. Would I be able to survive the night with this young vixen, and who the hell was she? Since the master bathroom had a deep tub, I allowed her to use it. I showered in the visitor bedroom. Tabitha did not let us down. In her cutest little girl voice, she spoke as she leaned against the doorframe. I've been really, really bad, Dad. Baby, what did you do? I felt like my skull was going to blow up. Tabitha, that is just inappropriate. How should your father treat you? She approached me and spoke while swinging sensually. Daddy, you should whip bad females for sliding onto my lap, using my left hand. I took hold of her short blonde hair and held her in place with my forearm. Give a slap. Whoa, slap, slap, smack. The following 3 came right after one another. Oh, Daddy, I apologize so much for being a teasing cheater. Let me be a nice girl and make it up to you, please, Daddy. Slap, 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 smack. A couple of strong blows. Baby, how are you going to get my forgiveness? It's time to put dirty cheaters in their proper place. I snarled. I was barely able to control myself not to throw her down on the bed and use her right now. Kindly, Daddy, she pleaded. My hold on her loosened. We stopped and got some water. We had our morning coffee and made love in the shower, then got ready and headed to brunch. Knowing her mother wouldn't be at work on a Saturday, she made the decision to call her after breakfast. My uncle's attorney, Eric Hodges, agreed to meet with me on Saturday at 10 a.m. because our case will be resolved in just an hour and he will receive $5,000 for closing the inheritance. I made plans to have dinner and drinks with Tabitha later. She didn't let her mother know about our circumstances, just that she was going to meet a guy. She gave me the name of a restaurant where we could meet and advised me to attempt to reserve a seat because it would be busy. After that, we're going home for the evening. She will continue to see her mother when I return to the airport in the morning. She assumed her mother would want to take Monday off work and bring her home, even though I had offered to buy her a ticket back to St. Louis. We were prepared. Tabitha stretched over and gave me a gentle peck on the lips as we were leaving. She said, "I can't wait to see you tonight, Daddy," I thought. Damn it. Fortunately, it lasted only one weekend. If not, I might not have made a bend return. I navigated to Hodges' workplace using the app. It was situated in the middle of a city center restaurant shopping area. At precisely 10 in the morning, I grabbed a parking space around the block and went inside his office. He was grinning and shaking hands, eagerly awaiting my arrival. For a few brief minutes, we talked about life. He inquired about my family background, and I informed him that I had lived here many years before. I only revealed as much information about my past as was required. All of this proved to be rather easy once we got down to business. We were spared a great deal of formality, because to my uncle's will. Taking my driver's license, Hodges copied it many times for his filing cabinet. He then read aloud from the will. After exchanging a few final words, he gave me a check for $40,765 when we were done doing business. I turned to leave and made my way back to my car. As I turned the corner, I noticed Tabitha a block away, with what must have been her mother, an elderly woman. They didn't notice me because they were chatting and laughing and didn't look at anyone else. I became motionless. I was staring at Debbie, my ex-wife. She looked older, and I hadn't seen her in 25 years, yet I could have recognized her anywhere. I suddenly realized why I had been drawn to Tabitha's gaze. Her mother's eyes were similar to theirs. Approximately half a block away from me, they crossed the street and went inside a clothes store, without realizing I was there. Oh no. The daughter of my ex-wife was used. I felt all the feelings I had felt years ago all over again. My hands were shaking, and I had a cold sweat all over me. I had no idea that the fool who had betrayed my greatest love and deprived me of the happiness that comes with sharing a home with a real spouse was at the fucking clothes store across the street. I was in excruciating discomfort when I started chuckling gently out of the blue. I thought back to all the moments I'd wasted trying to figure out how to burn this fool. I chose to let it go a year after moving to Bend. I was aware that there would never be an opportunity for me to even the odds. Without me, the cheating fool will experience whatever comes to him. I wasn't going to let her treachery ruin me entirely. Even if I've been badly injured, even if I have to give up on ever getting even, I'll be all right. I laughed more the more I considered it. It's likely that some passers-by were perplexed as to why this was so hilarious. I laughed as I leaned against my car to collect my breath. I laughed, but it was foreboding laughter, not a sign of relaxation. I realized that I was not going to be a Debbie or a chivalrous person. Sure, I wasn't going to rouse sleepyheads previously, but now I'm going to take advantage of the circumstance. Maybe a more responsible man would have handled that differently. A truly decent person would likely conclude that enough time had passed and move on from the past. Not me. That was my chance to exact a little revenge, I realized. I didn't want to cause Tabitha any harm in the process, but perhaps there's no other option. I promised not to treat her badly. She is not to blame. But I was going to relish causing my former partner some discomfort. I waited roughly 4 homes away from the clothes business after crossing the street. I moved in their direction when they emerged. Oh my God, that was fun? But the next 5 minutes would never have made a Hallmark film. "Hello, Tabitha, Tabitha," I waved my hand and yelled. She seemed a little uncomfortable when I noticed her look up. We decided that meeting her mother wasn't necessary. Her expression was a mix of mild worry and surprise. Debbie initially gave me the same look that anyone would give a stranger who was obviously her daughter's friend. Debbie's interest swiftly transformed into perplexity, recognition, and horror as I smiled and closed the distance. It was Tabitha's time to be ashamed, she gasped, her palm flying to her mouth. "Do you know him, Mum?" I spoke up before she could say anything. "Hello, Debbie. A long time has passed. Oh, it was really pleasant. Tom, why are you in this place? Really, how did you get to know my daughter and why are you here? Do you know Mom, Tom? Do you know my mother, Tom? How is it possible? What on earth is happening?" Both of them were perplexed. Ladies, allow me to attempt an explanation. Tabitha, I will begin with you. I had no notion your mother was the cheating, lying ex-wife 5 minutes ago. This is something we didn't talk about last night on the plane, but I got married here a very long time ago. Debbie, if you have anything further to say, please stop me. Not at all? All right, I'll carry on. You see, Tabitha, my one and only true love was your mother. Though we were poor and young, our love was undying, attempting to get by. I was gone for almost 9 weeks after accepting a job on a river barge. We knew going into it that it would be difficult, but we loved one another and knew we would make it work. For 2 months, while I was on that boat, my Debbie and how to get back to her consumed every thought I had. When I got my paycheck and returned home, I was ecstatic. We could truly begin our lives as a couple. I was shocked to learn that my devoted wife who had pledged her allegiance to me was expecting an unnatural kid. I discovered throughout our conversation that she had only waited roughly 2 weeks to make love to your father, David Hollister. Both of the women gasped at these statements. I went on, oops. Have you ever revealed your daughter's true father to her, Debbie? It's unfortunate, to be sure. It could be the reason behind her issues with her father, which are evident during intimate moments. I was afraid Debbie was going to pass out. Anyway, baby, by making love to her boss a few weeks ago, your mum damaged me and our future together. Ultimately, he offered her $1,000 in exchange for her leaving and keeping quiet, something she plainly refused to do. It took me about 5 years to start over and rebuild my life after I emotionally fled the city. Thus, this ought to address your query. Debbie, I'll respond to you now. I had an uncle in the city, so I came back. After his death, I received a tiny bequest. I made the decision to finish my inheritance by going back to see my hometown one last time. I was not going to look for you because I had no idea you were still here. Why would I want to get back together with a self-centered idiot who didn't care about me or my partner? In any case, I was seated beside a stunning young lady on the plane who introduced herself to me as Tabitha. Over a few glasses of wine, we had a conversation and relished getting to know one another. I never had the foggiest notion who her mother was, and she never gave me your name. But like I said, we genuinely appreciated one another and had a terrific time. Once more, I believe that she might be experiencing some of this since she is still searching for a caring father. So, that evening, we took a plane to Hannibal, where she spent the night with me. It was pretty awesome, you know. You never made love to me with such intelligence and zeal. We've made love at least 8 times, though I'm not sure how many times. You know how much your tiny daughter enjoys being used. By the way, now that she was scarlet red, Tabitha was obviously upset. Debbie had tears running down her face and was depressed. I'm nearly finished. I turned to face Tabitha again. I don't blame you, Tabitha. I'm sad you're suffering and angry right now, but you don't understand what true pain is like. It appears that I slightly deceived you. I'm just not that great of a guy, but I could see your mother turn around and walk away. And the fool you call mum is mostly to blame for it. Please know that I have no ill will towards you, and that we will never discuss it again. I wish you a happy life and promise to be here for you if you ever need a friend in Ben. There aren't any requirements. I am very sorry that you were embroiled in this. You are a great young woman. I don't expect anything physical, but I would still love to have supper with you this evening. A small smile appeared on Tabitha's face. Debbie, I can feel the healing power of your tears and anguish. I thought there would never be an opportunity to express to you the depth of my grief at your hands. I could not have imagined creating a plan like this in a million years. But I want you to know that I can see the fear in your eyes now that I'm here. You now have some understanding of what you did to me. I know it hurts like hell, because I can see it in your face. Not only is your young daughter an amazing young lady, but she's also quite good in bed. I want you to live the rest of your life with the mental image of how I used it so much last night. I'm going to miss you. I turned and left, hearing Debbie cry, and felt like the world was lifted off my shoulders. Subsequently, my phone rang. Are you still planning to have dinner with me, Daddy? I was shouting at my mum, being really mischievous.